Good evening, Loudon Soccer parents and players. Welcome to our college coaches panel and roundtable discussion tonight. Joining me this evening is Paul Zazenski, the head men's soccer coach from James Madison University, and Lindsay Martin, who's the head women's coach at VCU. Aaron McGinnis, the assistant women's soccer coach from VCU, was supposed to be joining us this evening. He had a last-minute conflict, but I'm thrilled and really happy that Lindsay has jumped in, and she's had some Wi-Fi issues down there in the Richmond area because of the storms that have come through, but she's connected by phone, and I really appreciate her efforts. Normally, every fall, I lead a discussion on NCAA rules and the differences between Division 1, 2, and 3 schools, and differences in scholarships and a couple other topics. This evening is going to be a little bit different, although the coaches and myself will touch on those topics. Mostly what we're going to discuss are what I'll call hot topics in recruiting, and questions and topics that I feel come up a lot with Loudon Soccer parents and players. So hopefully you'll enjoy the information and you'll get a lot out of it. At any point, feel free to ask any of us questions. You can do that by going to the chat box there at the bottom of your Zoom there. Or if you want to wait to the end, that's fine as well, because we'll take some time at the end to answer any questions that you have. So just real quickly here. Just a real brief introduction here. As I mentioned, Paul Zazenski is with us from James Madison University. He's been at JMU for 4 years. His record there is 42, 18, and 10, as you can see. He's led the program to 3 conference tournament titles and 3 NCAA tournaments. And it would have been 4 this year, but his program switched conferences. So unfortunately, he and his players got punished for that. So obviously he's done a fantastic job with the program, and he's been voted on by his fellow coaches as a 2-time CAA Coach of the Year. Lindsay Martin has been at VCU as the head women's soccer coach for 10 years. Her overall record, as you can see there, is 90, 56, and 20. She's led the program to an Atlantic 10 regular season conference championship, and also 2 Atlantic 10 tournament finals appearances. And she has also been voted an Atlantic 10 Coach of the Year. Before we get started, I do want to really thank them for their time. This is a very busy time in the recruiting calendar. There's a lot of showcases and tournaments going on and ID camps. And I'm sure these two are trying to squeeze in a little bit of vacation as well before the preseason starts, which is going to be very soon. So I really appreciate them making time to spend time with our club and go over some important information. So what I want to start with, and for both Paul and Lindsay, I want you to comment on this. Why don't you talk a little bit about how so your past experience, different programs that you've worked at, and which has helped you get to your current position, and then both of you obviously have done very well with your programs. You're both running successful programs. What do you think are some keys that have helped your programs have that success? Maybe Paul, you can start us off.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. I grew up in a little place in North Carolina. Didn't have a lot of soccer going on the coastline of North Carolina back in the day. Moved and played in college in Greensboro, North Carolina at UNC Greensboro, Division I. And then after I got done with my playing career, wanted to get into coaching. And in order to do so, I actually moved to the state of Montana, where soccer, not really anybody knew what was going on or anything about it. So I started at an NAIA program as a graduate assistant back in 2009. And the head coach left in 3 months, and I had my own program at the age of 24. Out in Montana, I was the head coach at that NAI for 5 years, moved back to the East Coast after started having my children. And I've been at JMU for going on my 8th season, because when I got to JMU, I came in as the assistant coach and worked my way up. So, I've loved JMU in my time here, but I think that my time at the NAI level at a small, school was one of the most important and impactful decisions I've ever made in my coaching journey. And I think it's made me the coach that I am today here at James Madison. What I think separates, or I think has been a positive thing for our program here at James Madison, and what I think attributes to a lot of the success, it might sound a little bit basic and generic, but it is the truth. It's we bring in good kids and good people, and that is the primary thing that I look at as the head coach, and I preach to my assistants is they obviously all players have to be able to play the game, but we are actively searching for the best human beings that we can possibly bring into the program, and I think that that's led to a good amount of our recent success.
It's great. Lindsay, you want to talk a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on, and sorry for calling in. We're having some Wi-Fi issues here with the storms that came through. The power was off, and it was on, then it was off. Now it's back on. But my background is I played at William and Mary. I'm from Virginia originally, from the Chesapeake area. Grew up there, played with the boys team up until I was 16, and then they made me go over to the girls, and then I went to William and Mary, played there. Right out of college, I got involved with Beach FC, which is a club in Virginia Beach, Virginia, just coaching like 11, 12, 14-year-olds, et cetera. And then I got an opportunity to be an assistant coach at Hofstra University, which is a private Division I school in Long Island, New York. I was there for 4 years with a very, very successful boss, Simon Ridioff, and got my first head coaching job at 28 down at Georgia Southern. So I went from Long Island to Georgia Southern. I don't know if that means anything to you guys, but it was it was tough. It was unusual. So I was down at Georgia Southern for 2.5 years as a head coach for the first time, and was able to be successful rather quickly with moving a team that had not had any success within the Southern Conference to winning the conference tournament in my second year. That got me to VCU, and I've been at VCU now for 10 years. And it's been fun. We've had a lot of success, and we've had a lot of failure too. And I think that, what I'd say is kept our program successful is never getting too high on the good days or too low on the bad days, right? It's just keep grinding away. It's all a process. And if you're putting in the time and the effort and the passion to what you do, and you're surrounding yourself with players and staff that have that same ownership of the program, then, it's all going to work out in the end. And I think that, this past year was a really good results for us, but, it's not always about the results. I think it's just the journey along the way, and certainly the results are fun, and winning championships is fun, but, surrounding ourselves with really good people, like Paul said, is what makes our job enjoyable.
Excellent. That's great. We've got some rising freshmen and parents that are watching this right now. We've got some rising sophomores and some rising juniors. Can each of you kind of break down what each class should be doing at this point in the recruiting cycle? Obviously, with the juniors, the big date that just passed was June 15th, and now they're able to communicate freely with college coaches. The freshmen and sophomores can't really communicate that much with college coaches, but Lindsay, why don't you start us off and talk about what you think freshmen and sophomores should really focus on, and should they be reaching out to college coaches, or is it too early?
Yeah, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, but I don't believe that freshmen need to be reaching out to college coaches. I just think you guys should be having fun with the game right now and learning and growing every single week that you play, and really making sure that you're having fun while you're doing it. We certainly have that age group reach out to us, but to be honest with you, I just kind of file them away in a futures folder, or I just forget entirely because we get so many emails, especially this time of year with the June 15th that just passed. So that's my advice for the freshmen. For the sophomores, I think you need to start to identify potential schools that you may have interest in. And there are so many out there. When you look at Division I, Division II, Division III, NAIA, there's going to be so many options. And I think, having a circle of trust around you and coaches that you can lean on and parents you can lean on that can be honest with you about where you may fit in the future. And that can be hard to tell when you're a sophomore, but, there starts to be some writing on the wall as to, what type of schools you should be looking at. And then once you are able to identify, okay, maybe I'm well suited for this division, or, not only within that division, but are we talking top 25 in the country, or, are we talking bottom 300? Like, there's 345 Division I women's soccer programs. That's, it's nuts. There's just so much to look at. There's so much to think about, but starting to try to narrow your list to maybe, I don't know, 25, 30 schools that you're like, okay, maybe I have interest there, or, my grandmother's from that area. I always liked when I visited there. So just some general ideas. And then as you make your way through your sophomore year, starting to really think a little bit more about that, because then that June 15th date is going to come, which just came, a couple days ago. And at that point, you're going to have potentially college coaches that are emailing you or texting and calling you. And, you want to have some idea about whether you would have interest in that program. That's not to say that every player heard from a college coach on June 15th. And that's absolutely okay. I mean, every coach does it differently. I know here at VCU, we certainly did not reach out to every player that we have a potential interest in. We have to start somewhere. And so day by day, we will, but it's not all going to happen on June 15th or June 16th or June 17th. So if you didn't hear from a college coach and, you are a rising junior now, just stay patient in the process. Please don't get down, because, I would say, like, of kids that eventually did commit to us, I really don't know, but I can't remember speaking to any of them on June 15th of what was their rising junior year. So, it's just a process. And I do think that social media has really hyped up that date to a place that I don't feel comfortable with. I don't like the hype. I think it just stresses kids out even more. And I don't think we need those stressors to be any more elevated than they already are. So again, just relax and have fun with it. But as you enter your junior year, you do want to be narrowing down your list. And at that point, after August 1, you can make your visits to different schools, unofficially and officially. If you ever make a visit as a sophomore as well, and it is surrounding an ID clinic, you will be able to tour the campus. That's a bit of a loophole with being able to see a school a bit earlier than that August 1 timeframe. But if you wait till August 1, that's still plenty of time. I'd say a lot of schools start to commit their 2024s this summer, but a lot of them won't even be committed till next summer. So again, just staying patient in the process. I know, we just committed a 2023 right after the PDA showcase. So there's still plenty of time. And I think most coaches, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself, we're never going to close the door on the right player, no matter how late she knocks on it. So again, just stay persistent in what you want and just try to keep developing as a player.
That's good advice. Hopefully that calms some nerves for some people that are listening right now. Paul, we're talking about the June 15th date and rising juniors. What advice do you have for players in terms of, if there's some players I'm sure that are listening right now that haven't gotten phone calls from college coaches, but like Lindsay said, will be getting phone calls from college coaches. How can players prepare for that phone call, and what do those phone calls generally look like? What should they be prepared for, and what other advice do you have for players that are going into their junior year?
I tend to be pretty honest and direct with some questions like this in these settings, and the honesty in me says that not as many coaches reach out on on June 15th as you would think. You know, I can say for our program, it was maybe 10, 15, 20 players, you know, and that might be even on the high end. And so I think, you know, those conversations maybe don't happen right away. And I think it's good to be prepared if they do, certainly. But it's a long process. So, you know, I think the biggest thing that I look for in a phone conversation, or, you know, if a player was face to face on a visit, whether it be unofficial or unofficial down the line, is, you know, just kind of relaxing and being yourself and, you know, telling me a story, or, you know, just really showing me who you are, because the thing that we see time and time again is just generic conversation. You know, I ask a question and that player gives a very generic response. They may be nervous, which is okay, or their parents might tell them, you know, what to say, which is once again part of the deal. But we're looking for those type of things about who's being genuine and respectful to their parents and their siblings, who's holding open doors, who's being polite, you know, when we go out to lunch or something like that. Same thing on the phone. You know, I think there's a lot of things that, you know, recruits might say that can instantly have us say, hang up that phone and say, listen, you know, let's go in a different direction. Things like, you know, accidentally cursing, or just talking about something that doesn't maybe add up to recruiting. So those things happen. And, you know, I would say that one of the biggest mistakes made is, you know, everybody, when August 1 comes rolling around and it's time to really get out on these campuses, everybody puts their short list together, and it's, you know, Georgetown, it's UVA, it's Maryland, and it's these amazing schools with a lot of times great educations and great programs on the women's and men's sides. But I think that that's okay to dream big and want to go to those places. But most players don't look at every level and have, you know, 3 schools that they would go to in Division I, 3 schools in Division II, 3 schools in Division III, and even NAI, because there's a fit for everybody, and you really just got to be open to searching for it. And I don't think that that's done near enough. And then the last thing I would say, and it goes along with your question, Dave, is just having honest, direct dialogue. So as you get, you know, kind of further down the process and you've made some visits, you've made either some phone calls or a coach has called you, eventually you have to start asking some tough questions. And I don't think that that's done enough either. Nobody wants to ever get rejected, I understand, but excuse me, you also won't know the genuine interest from that school unless you directly ask. How interested are you in me? Should I look for another program? And really get down to it. Not your parents, the players. And I don't think that's done enough either.
Great. Campus visits, I want to talk a little bit about that. Because generally that comes up when there starts to be some communication between a college coach and a player. Is there, Lindsay, why don't you answer this one? Is there a certain time in the year that you prefer that recruits visit? When is a good time to visit a college campus? What does that visit look like when you meet with a recruit? You know, what should a recruit expect on a college visit to do? And my last part of that question is, do you meet with every player that steps foot on your campus, or do you and your staff just meet with players that you've had some dialogue with and you're actively recruiting?
I think I remember them all, but I can't promise you that.
I'll repeat it.
I'll start with the last one. If we are recruiting a player, if we have had recruiting conversations with a student athlete, yes, the assistants will meet with them and usually take them on the tour of campus, both a walking tour and a bit of a driving tour, and then I will meet with them on the back end, as well as the academic advisor will meet with them. But if a player just steps on our campus and we don't know her, we've got a lot going on, especially from August through, mid to late November, so that we may not meet with those players. So, I think that it's okay to ask, but better yet, why not start that conversation, that dialogue earlier with the college coach and see if you can get some interest from them, as opposed to just a cold email that's, hey, I'm on your campus next week. Can you meet with me Tuesday at 2? Probably not going to with those cases. But what our visits look like are, like I said, kind of coming through and doing a campus tour, doing a driving tour, meeting with academic advisor, and just seeing the soccer facilities, seeing an academic building, going through the library, going in the dining hall, going into the places that you as a college student would be visiting every single day. Going downstairs from, the coach's offices to where the athletic trainers are, and just kind of walking through there and just really being able to see what it would be like to be a college student at VCU, and what type of resources we offer. And I'd say, as far as the time frame of when those visits happen, I mean, the NCAA doesn't do us any favors by starting on August 1, that's for sure. Like, we literally start preseason on August 1. So I couldn't disagree more with the time frame they've set out, but it is what it is. I think, like, there's going to be times where our schedule just doesn't align, but I think that there are opportunities to come through even during preseason. Like, we only train once a day, and then we'll do some film in the afternoon. So even during preseason, I think there's moments to do it. And then, certainly during our fall season, like Monday is our mandatory off day. That's not for coaches, though. That's just for players. So we can certainly still meet with you and give you tours on that Monday. The best time of year, maybe more like the spring, though, as far as the actual how much time we have. And we had quite a few visits come through this spring that were 2023s that were in their final decision-making process. But it all depends on when you're trying to make a decision. Like, if you're at 2024 and you're trying to decide, by the Florida Stanford showcase in January, then you're going to have to come during our fall season. Whereas if you're more open to the process taking a bit longer and you're willing to make that decision sometime next spring, then you can, push off your visit until the late winter, early spring time period.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think you answered all of them, Lindsay. I think and feel like recruiting has changed a lot in the last 10 years. Paul, can you talk about, has it changed in the last 5 years, and how has your program adjusted with things like advances in technology? Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I think recruiting is ever changing. Every time, every year, every season, there's not only rule changes within the NCAA. I remember, just to give you an example, a time when I was, recruiting, and you couldn't talk to players after they played. You couldn't really speak to them the whole day after the competition. So now you can have more dialogue on the fields, and there's an ever-changing rule book within the NCAA. So it changes every year. I think the biggest thing that I've felt since COVID happened, especially, is the use of video and highlights and full games. The majority of our 2021 recruiting class, we didn't get to watch in person because of COVID. So definitely an emphasis on quality, highlight videos and having the full game available. So then we can then watch you play live.
So sorry, Paul, to interrupt you real quick, because this is one of my questions. So you do look at full videos. Do you want recruits to send you full games?
It's usually on request. Now, keep in mind that every program is going to be completely different as to what they generally do and like. We, kind of vet out the process through a highlight video, through word of mouth, through, just introductions at camp or while a player's on campus. But I think that generally speaking, video and highlight video is the best way to go. And then if a coach sees that highlight video and they really like what they see, the next steps is usually a full game video. And then the next steps is, okay, I saw your highlight video, I saw your full game video, I'd like to watch you play live now, as well as calling your club coaches and the whole process. So it is, a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 step process when you take all the things into consideration. But for us, it does start with either a phone call, email, highlights, or word of mouth recommendations. And then the other part of it, I think that has changed, especially on the men's side, some now on the women's side too, is the international recruiting. It's been heavier in the last few years, some based on COVID as well. But I think international recruiting and then the transfer portal, which I know, we'll probably get into here in a second, but recruiting has drastically changed in those areas in the course of the last couple years.
Okay. Question that just came in, and I was going to go over this. ID camps. Lindsay, ID camps seem to be everywhere these days. I think every college has an ID camp, if not 2 or 3. A lot of clubs have ID camps as well. What part do they play in recruiting? Do you use them, and yeah, do they affect the recruiting of players? And another piece of the topic is how do players decide which college ID camps to go to? I'm sure there are a number of players that are listening right now that have gotten a lot of invitations. Some may be to schools that they've never even heard of. So what's your advice on how they choose which ID camps to go to?
Yeah, I think ID camps they get a bad rap, to be honest with you, because everybody has them. And in some capacity, yes, they are for financial purposes as well, of assistant coaches making a little bit of a summer salary. But they're important. I mean, we absolutely recruit from our ID clinics. Our own in particular, we've had many recruits come through, and it may be kind of a final eval. Sometimes it's the first eval, but regardless, it's been like a catalyst in the process of being like, oh, wow, this kid can play. Like, we got to see her in many different environments throughout that day. Not just with her club team playing one position, but also doing some small sided, some possession based. We do at our ID clinics, we'll do like some clearances. We want to know, can they compete for aerial balls? Can they challenge 50-50? It's something you don't always get to see if you just show up for 40 minutes of a club game. It's an important piece of college soccer. So we try to create the environment within our ID clinics where we can truly, walk away knowing, okay, this is a kid we really want. This is a kid we want to offer. So I do think they're important. As far as deciding which camps to go to, yeah, I mean, you want to go to those that you feel like feasibly could be a place that you end up. And I think for every family, that's going to be different because a price tag is attached. But, I think that if you can find a couple in that summer, so for, again, like that 2024 class now, or maybe even 25, starting to think about that, like go to, if you're a 25, maybe go to 2 ID clinics this summer and just test them out, see what they're like. And if anything, it can be a learning experience of like, okay, maybe this isn't where I want to go, but I just learned what that environment is like, what the stressors feel like while I'm doing it, the competition, et cetera. And then when you're really at that recruitable age where coaches are really starting to evaluate, trying to find those schools that you feel like you could fit in. And again, that's why I think you do need those coaches and those mentors that you can trust as far as what level you will fit in as far as your college play.
Excellent. Great. Another question that just came in, and it was also one of my questions. Paul, high school soccer. Many of our players have just wrapped up their high school seasons. What role does high school soccer play in recruiting? Do you go to high school games? Do you communicate with high school coaches? Do you have an opinion on whether players should play high school soccer?
I think high school soccer is important if you want to play high school soccer. Probably the best single team that I ever played on in my entire life in terms of enjoyment, enjoying the game and those around me was my senior year of high school soccer. It was with my best friends. I will never forget it. Did it teach me anything about the game? I'm not sure. Was it high quality? No. Did it make me a better player? Probably not, but I enjoyed the heck out of it. And I think there's something to be said for that. I also was a captain on that team and a leader. So that, did teach me about how to become a better player. But I do think from a recruiting standpoint, no, I don't look at high school games. What I look for is accolades, if I'm being honest, all-state, first team, region player of the year, set a high school record for goals scored. I'm looking for those high school, attributes, not, MVP of the JV team. And if you were, congratulations, but high school soccer is just not our bread and butter. I've been to one high school game in my 8-year career at JMU, and that was the Virginia finals. And it was a good game, but it's just not our market. It doesn't mean that we would never go again, but we're going to look at club and academy and internationally and transfer portal well before we go to high school games. But I still encourage it.
Great. Paul, you've talked a lot, especially early on in the discussion, about character. You feel like that's a key to your program success. And I think every coach values character, but maybe even more so at the college level. Is there an example, or can you think of one where character affected your recruiting of a player, either in a positive way or a negative way?
I mean, literally all the time. That's how we weed out who we don't want, is a lot of that. Now, yes, there's the on the field vetting out, how players fit into our program on the field, which is certainly valuable and important. But like I said to start off, more importantly is the character piece and how that player will add to our culture. And I always tell recruits that when you come on campus, you should have a checklist, both parties, right? The coach and the players and families. And you should be going through that checklist and evaluating the coach. Do I think I could play for him? Do I like the assistants? Do I like the environment? What do the players that are currently in that environment, what do they have to say? And this whole time that you're on campus, you should be checking boxes or putting X's by them, right? Based on your preferences. And that's exactly what we do from a character standpoint. If a player comes into the office and they're genuinely excited, they have good questions, they're energetic about, not only JMU, but, they just are interested in what I have to say or my assistants have to say, that's going to draw us in. If somebody looks disinterested, they're checking out their phone, they're being rude to their family, not holding open doors, we ask them a question and it's a one sentence answer, that's an easy X, by their name. And maybe, just maybe, once again, being honest, if they're just the most absolute special player we've ever seen, maybe they get another shot at it. But I tell you, we go to a club game the next time, and that same player that we had some question marks scores a hat trick, but then he goes off the sidelines and is throwing up his hands and yelling at the referees, we wouldn't take him at JMU. So the character piece is absolutely massive, and we're constantly looking for ways to weed out the good players. And I say good because there's so many good players on Division I's radar, especially, that we're actually trying to weed out the good players. All right. So that's the way that we do it.
So getting back to your evaluation of players at showcases, because this is a common question, talking about specific soccer on the field. Lindsay, why don't you take this one? Are there certain qualities that you're looking for in players when you're at these showcases? Both of you probably look at maybe 100 kids or more. When you go to these events, you're constantly going from one field to the next. You're there for 2 or 3 days. How do you separate one player from the other, and what are you looking for that pertains to soccer and skill set?
Yeah, we get this question a lot, and it's kind of a tough one because it's almost like, well, when we know, but to try to break that down, of course they have to have that technical component, their first touch, the weight of their pass, short range, long range, that has to be there. That goes without saying. At our level, that has to be there. And of course there's the tactical side. Like, are they looking to keep possession, or are they just giving away the ball every time they touch it? Are they playing into too tight of spaces? Are they communicating with their teammate, turn or man on or time, so the vocal side. And then one of the biggest pieces for us, and it's a bit about our style of play, is athleticism. Like, can they cover ground quickly? We play a very high pressing style here, and, we have to have kids that can do that. They have to be athletic enough in order to have that mobility east, west, north, south, in order to be able to cover ground quickly. And I think a lot of terms go into athletic, right? Because you can think about strength or balance or power. It doesn't have to be, 5'10", and it doesn't have to be 5'1". That they're both okay, but I think just that mobility and that ability to cover ground at pace is really important for us. And not everybody feels that way. There are teams out there that play a different style, and they wouldn't feel as strongly about the athletic component. But for us personally, like, that has to be a major factor.
Okay. Lindsay, I'll have you take this one as well. 2 questions that just came in. Is it too late for a 2023 to find a college to play at? So a senior, is it too late for seniors?
No, it is not.
Okay.
Like I said, we just committed a 2023 last week or 2 weeks ago. And we won't close the door on a good player. Like, I feel very strongly about that. I think there's a lot of places that are still looking for 2023s. I mean, does that mean you're going to end up at UNC? No. But are there a lot of other homes that you could end up with and be very, very happy and have an impactful career and play at a good level? Oh, for sure. So yeah, 23s, don't give up yet. There's time out there. You just make sure that you're contacting the right schools, right? Like, like Paul said earlier, you've got to ask the tough questions. If you're in some kind of long dialogue, back and forth relationship with the university, and there's been no trigger pulled with regards to, do they want you? You have to ask that question now. If you're a 23, you got to be, pretty forward and pretty transparent about what it is you're looking for and what are they looking for. And then if they're not interested, great. You get to mark them off the list and go find somebody that is interested, but you get to stop wasting your time.
I think I know the answer to this. Is there less of a chance for athletic scholarship money for seniors?
Yeah, I mean, there is. To some extent, it's first come, first serve, right? Because
Right.
we only have so much money in every given class, and we don't want to hold on to it, and then we lose all the kids we wanted, and now we have no one to give it to. So for sure, there's less athletic money involved. That's not to say there aren't schools out there that have some money saved, though, for the potential of someone coming along late. A lot of universities tend to save some money for a late international. So maybe if you're the right American, they can go that route instead of the international route.
Got it. Paul, let's have you take this one. So you're out of field, you're watching a game, you see a player that you like, you think that they have some athleticism or some skill that can help your program. On average, how many times do you have to see that player before you commit to them, either a spot on your team or an athletic aid package?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. I think it's broken down a couple of different ways. And before I answer that question, one of the things I would follow up with on the last bit is just so, everybody understands, you hear these things about Division I's and how, their recruiting classes are done 3-4 years in advance. We were just looking the other day and in communication with a 2022, and we're about to start our season. Now, he was pretty good, but the point is like we're a month away and we're still looking, at a specific 22. All right, but it never stops. To go back to how many times do we need to look at a player? I do think it depends on the player, and I think it depends on the coach. I can give you an example of a player on our current roster in which I watched one time at one event locally, and I knew that I wanted him in the program after 5 minutes, based on him as a player. Now, we still had to go through the whole other process that I mentioned, but just as a player, I knew that's somebody that I wanted within the program. Others, it might take 6, 7 times. It might take, one of those times being in a game, one of those times being in a practice, one of those times being at an ID camp, one of those times being in a more natural environment, whatever it may be. So I don't think there's just absolutely one way, or one answer. But I would say for us, generally speaking, we probably say 4 to 5 times for each player that we commit, with the exception to out of region or international or transfer players.
Would you agree with that, Lindsay?
Yeah, I would agree for sure. There's those special kids that you just know right away. And then there, most kids though, you want to see, like Paul said, just in different environments over the course of time.
Okay. Transfer portal. I'm sure you two love the fact that I'm bringing this up. It's being talked about a lot these days. Lindsay, can you explain to everybody what the transfer portal is, and how it works and how it's affected your recruiting?
Yeah, so it's been a change in that you used to, as a student athlete, have to ask for a release from your university and in order to speak to other schools. And sometimes your university could actually not allow you to speak to other schools to potentially transfer. And now the power is more in the student athlete's hands. You no longer have to ask for any type of request. They just go to their compliance office and they say, I would like to be entered into the transfer portal. And they are entered into the portal. And once they are there, they may speak to anyone and everyone. And other college coaches, we have access to this said portal, and we can go in and see every day women's soccer players throughout the country, Division I, Division II, Division III, that have been added to the portal. It'll have their name and their email address. I think that's all the information in there, if I'm remembering correctly. And then we can decide. We can go and Google them, see what their statistics are, et cetera, and go watch them on Instat, which is something we do quite a bit, is typing a player's name into Instat. And at the college level, and the women's side at least, all of their game footage will come up, and we can watch their clips and see if we might have interest in recruiting them to our university.
Are you recruiting bigger classes because of the threat of transfers now leaving, or has that not changed at all?
No, I don't think I necessarily think of it as like, oh, that I need more players because they may leave. I don't think I think of it that way. But I think that we're willing to take chances on kids a little bit more. So potentially maybe that's going on in my subconscious. And that goes for both kids in the transfer portal looking for a new home, as well as, high school players. So, the appeal of the transfers is that they've had experience at the college level, and, they have, for us at least, we try to pick up players that got playing time, got really good minutes, and did some good things, got some accolades at their previous school, and are just leaving for whatever reason. I mean, the most recent one we got, she just wanted to try a new area. She was going to school in a place where she grew up. And so, I think like as a coach, we want to find out why they're transferring, because, it used to be said or thought that, oh, anybody transferring has some baggage. And I don't think that's as true anymore. I think it's so open now, and kids are so able to like snap their fingers and let's go do something new, that there isn't always something bad lingering behind it. But I think, as coaches, we absolutely want to find out, why is she in the portal? So, I call the coaching staff of wherever they're leaving every single time. And I will never not do that, because I did that once, and I will never do that again.
Okay, great. Last question I have, and each of you can answer this. Paul, you could start us off. For a rising senior that's committed to a college, what would be your advice in terms of them preparing for their first college season?
I think there's a million things, right? But I mean, fitness comes to mind, because the fitness levels required and the pre-seasons are so compact that is certainly an element. Conditioning your body and your mind, I would even say. But I think the biggest thing is that you have to play against or with other college level players. I've found that a lot of, club and good high school and club players, for their ages, they go through the entire recruiting process having never played against really older quality players. You might play against a senior on high school team or something, but they might not go to college, right? So, or be a college player. So what I mean by that is in your junior, senior year, you have to experience what a college player looks like and what they play like. And, I think that's something that's often missed in the process. So I would say, in that summer, however it happens, whether it's practicing even with a lot of these USL2, NPSL, there's a million different avenues to play with college players in that summer, but you got to experience it before you get into camp. And I always use this example, if you've not done that, and here you are, an 18-year-old player from the state of Virginia, and now you've got, to win your spot against a 22-year-old man that's in his fifth year, it can be intimidating. And kind of preparing yourself and having that process happen a little bit prior to college, I think can only help.
That's great. Lindsay, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would agree entirely. I mean, Paul didn't use the word speed of play, but I think we're alluding to the same thing in that when you come to college, the speed of play is what changes so dramatically. So playing with those older players and in some regard, those better players is only going to help you as you head into your college soccer. And then fitness. I know nobody wants to hear that, but it's absolutely true. I'd say speed of play and fitness are where freshmen are typically behind. And fitness is completely controllable. You completely control your fitness. I believe that 100%. You're already behind in other ways, like just because you don't have the experience, you're not acclimated to campus, you're not acclimated to your teammates or your coaches. So why put yourself behind on something so controllable as your fitness level? So go above and beyond and work your butt off in that summer so that you come in and, that's not even a question. They know, okay, you are ready to go from the physical perspective. And, now we can take care of the soccer piece.
Question that came in, do you have any players on your teams that are on academic scholarships? So not athletic,
yes.
But academic. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Yes, we do. VCU does a pretty good job of having in-state aid for academics as well as out-of-state aid for academics that are given. I don't control those, obviously, but we're able to, I wouldn't call it a package the way a private school is able to do it, because with a private school, sometimes you don't know what's academic and what's athletic. It's just like this big gift box. Whereas with a public institution like VCU or JMU, you will know exactly what is athletic and exactly what is academic. But yeah, I'm fairly pleased with what we're able to do academically.
Great. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, every school is going to vary. We do not offer any academic aid. You can apply for it, but it is next to impossible to get. So, for JMU, it's not something that is readily available. At my previous school, everybody had an academic scholarship, and then we could stack on an athletic aid on top of that, however we saw fit. So I think that is certainly a question to ask each institution and each coach that is vital in the process.
Good. Another question just came in. I think I know the answer to this. Do you have to be on an ECNL team to play college soccer? Lindsay, do you want to take that one?
No, you do not have to be ECNL or GA. It's just those are the showcases that, of course, have so much talent that we do tend to attend because we can't be everywhere. But we are always looking for players at all levels, and it's the coach's job to make sure that we're grinding through the process of recruiting and looking to find players. But I mean, to be honest, yes, if you look at our roster, I will say that of the American kids, most of them played at ECNL or with the Girls Academy, but not all of them.
Yeah. Great. Does anybody have any other questions here before we wrap up? Okay. Well, listen, I thought that was great. Paul, Lindsay, I can't thank you enough. I thought the information you provided tonight was really awesome and very helpful. And I really appreciate your time. As I mentioned from the very beginning, you can see Paul is doing this from his office. He came back in his office to do it. So it's a busy time of year, and I appreciate you spending time with our club. One last question just came in. What tournaments do you look at or go to?
We go to any that we can. I mean, we pair, the academy up with ECNL, with local recruiting. I mean, we go internationally. We're all over the place, and we try to get out and about as much as possible. So, sometimes we stick regionally. Other times, we're going to Texas next week. So it all depends. But one of the things kind of that to follow up is, about kind of the ECNL thing. And of course, academy on the boys and ECNL on the boys are the top levels, and the nuts and bolts of your rosters are gonna, be those players. But I can't tell you how many times that we've had a player that nobody has known about, that we didn't pass up the chance to look at them, and it's worked out in our favor. One of the examples that I always use was a player was playing for a no-name club up north, and he was just driving by our campus through 81 and said, "Hey, that looks pretty great. Let's stop and see if the coach is there." And he was on his way to take a tour around colleges, and he said, "Could I just ask a few questions?" Well, he was actually from one of the towns that I grew up in up north, and we sat down and talked. And in those cases, a lot of the times, if you do catch a college coach on their campus unannounced, I suggest going up and introducing yourself. And if anything more comes of it, great. If it doesn't, just get out of their way, and that be that. But in this case, this player, had something in common with me. So the next step usually is to invite him to an ID camp and to watch him play. We go out to a local tournament that his team happened to be playing in. It wasn't a big tournament. He was playing in a position that wasn't his college position. We really liked him. We said, "Man, this guy's got something. Let's invite him to our camp." He comes to our camp. We were still on the fence about him. He came in. We offered him a roster position. He came in and blew us away. When he graduated, he was a first-team All-American and got drafted into the MLS. That doesn't happen very often, okay? But it does happen. And there's another example. I'm not going to go through the whole story. Same thing happened with a player from Virginia. Didn't have him on our radar at all, and just kept on trying. And before you know it, had a very successful career. So sometimes I think parents and players, and they get caught up so much, and I've got to do this, I've got to do that, or else these coaches are not going to ever see me or want me. But if somebody really catches our eye, we're going to follow down that path to try to get them.
Great. A couple more questions that came in. I'm going to answer this one so we can just move things along a little bit. How many players do you recruit per year? That's based on the recruiting class that they're looking for. If they're losing 5 players, they're probably looking to bring in 5 or 6 players. If they're losing 8 seniors, it's going to be a bigger class of more like 8 to 10. Good question that just came in. Lindsay, maybe you can take this one. Do you ever take walk-ons?
Yes, yes, please. No, we do, of course. We all only have so many scholarships, and that amount of scholarships certainly does not cover everybody on the roster. So, we do recruit walk-ons, and they have very important roles on our team. I will say the scholarship process is not fair. I mean, there will be kids in our starting lineup that are walk-on, and someone with quite a bit of money that doesn't get as much playing time, because we're going to play the best players, for our team. And we're just human. We make mistakes in the recruiting process, and maybe a player doesn't come in as ready as we hope they would be, and somebody else comes in really ready. And you know, I would say for sure, like walk-ons are an important piece of every college program, I believe.
Paul, another quick question about GPA that can hold a player back or help them. I'm assuming the question is about whether a GPA can affect recruiting.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the biggest example that I could use is, you know, if you're looking at two players of similar quality, maybe they play the same position or whatnot, you're going to look at that GPA. And if one has one player has a 3.7 and his coaches love him, and the next player has a 2.6, and, you know, maybe you can sense a little bit of an attitude or some pushback, then we're going to look at that GPA and we're going to say that kind of translates into, you know, the standards that player has set for themselves in the classroom. And a lot of times that translates to outside the classroom. So absolutely, the GPA is a big factor, and we look at that on most occasions. Okay,
great. Last question here, Lindsay. When should the class of 2025 start emailing college coaches?
Oh, not yet.
Don't confuse us.
We have so many 24 emails right now that it's not a good time to email a college coach as a 25, because, you know, you're just going to get thrown to the side for the time being. So if you're really excited to start the process, I'd say like this fall, maybe you could start, but I wouldn't recommend necessarily earlier than that, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, great. Paul, Lindsay, again, can't thank you enough. Really appreciate your time. We've had players at your programs, and we will follow your programs and can't wait to see how you guys do this year. So best of luck. Enjoy the remaining time with the summer. And yeah, thanks for everything. And we hope to see you again soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave.